And so I'm like in this job and I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm staying put, I'm not going anywhere. And then this call comes from Amazon. And it was 7 months into my role. And I said, I just started this role. I'm actually really liking it. And they came back again and said, no, we actually think you would be a great fit for this role. And they talked to me about why. And the more I met people over there, I was like, actually, it would be kind of cool. And I was most excited about the opportunity of taking a brand that everybody thought was kind of a distant number two and being a part of the team that took that brand from number two to number one in the US, because that's something everybody would have thought was impossible.
Right.
And I said, that actually feels like a really hard thing. And I think I want to be a part of the team that does that. And so
I love how you think.
yeah. So I made the leap to move to the world of media and entertainment and movies and TV shows. And my team and I got to launch some of the coolest kind of TV shows and movies in the world. And that was really, really cool. And I'm so glad that God gave me the opportunity to move into tech and to move into entertainment. And now I know why. because while I was in that role, he started speaking to me about what I'm doing now.
Hi, you're listening to Java with Jen with your host, Jenna Lee Samuel. On this show, I bring the simplicity of hearing God's voice into everyday life in a no-nonsense, authentic, and super practical way. With coffee in hand and real life in our faces, let's do this.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me here for another interview on Java with Jen. And my guest today, Ukonwa Oho, and I hope I said that right. Did I say that right? Ojo. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll let her say her own name. But she is a guest on the show today, and we're actually going to talk about something we haven't talked much about, which is teens and tech. And she has an incredible solution in this area that is also a response of her following the Holy Spirit's leadership in her life. And so I'm excited to dive into her story, but let me impress you guys with her bio real quick. As I read it, I was like, holy crap, who am I interviewing? This woman's incredible. So she's a trailblazing entrepreneur and a marketing expert whose 26-year career spans some of the world's biggest brands, including Amazon Prime Video, MAC Cosmetics, and CoverGirl, some of my favorite things in life. And she is now the founder and CEO of Zaya Ventures, where she focuses on building businesses that empower marginalized communities. Two standout ventures that she's been working on include Zaya, which is a Christian social media networking app, and Ada and Edith Inc., which is a luxury women's wear brand. Very different ends of the spectrum. That's very cool and tells us a glimpse of your creativity span, right? At Amazon, she led a high-performing team to launch 8 of the top 10 shows in Prime Video's history, which is incredible, achieving its highest ever global customer subscription and engagement, including replacing Netflix as the #1 US streamer. Okay, that you need an award for that. I hope you got a trophy for that. That's incredible. Throughout her career, she's earned over 60 awards and honors, including Forbes' the world's most influential CMOs and Black Enterprise 25 Women Changing the World. Okay, so are you guys impressed yet? Because I was so impressed. I was like, what the heck? This woman's incredible. Let's be friends. Okay, so talk to us about this. You obviously have an incredible background. And so share a little bit of your story. Maybe tell us how you even landed in the space where you're helping Amazon become the top streamer and you're working with all these incredible companies. Like, how did you land there? And then we'll dive into how you landed where you're at now.
Yeah, no, it's been a really, really cool journey. I've spent most of my career building brands. I started out my brand building career at General Mills, and I worked on brands like Progresso Soup and Honey Nut Cheerios. And then I joined a company called Reckitt, and I actually worked on their sexual well-being brand. I worked on Durex for a little bit. And then Unilever called, and I had the opportunity to work on Knorr, which was actually the biggest brand. Everybody thinks it's Dove, but it was actually Knorr. And then I got the opportunity to lead CoverGirl. And it was at a time where I was actually very comfortable in my career. We were living in London. I really liked living in London. I had moved to London, and we liked living in London. And this opportunity came up to be like, oh, CoverGirl is actually looking for someone to lead the brand globally. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds like the coolest job ever. That it was, the office was in the Empire State Building. I was like, this is amazing. Um,
Wow.
and so that was my pivot into the world of lifestyle and beauty. So I ran CoverGirl for 2 years, helped turn that business around. And then I got promoted to Chief Marketing Officer. So that was my first kind of CMO role. And then I got other brands in my portfolio like Clairol and Rimmel and other brands like that. And then I got the opportunity, which was kind of a dream because I had loved MAC since I was like I've always loved makeup and fashion and all of that. And so when I had the opportunity to lead global marketing for MAC, I was like, now this seems like the dream job. I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to do this job forever. And it's so funny. Like the way God works, it's like really funny actually. And so I'm like in this job and I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm staying put, I'm not going anywhere. And then this call comes from Amazon and it was 7 months into my role. And I said, I just started this role. I'm actually really liking it. And they came back again and said, no, we actually think you would be a great fit for this role. And they talked to me about why. And the more I met people over there, I was like, actually, it would be kind of cool. And I was most excited about the opportunity of taking a brand that everybody thought was kind of a distant number two and being a part of the team that took that brand from number two to number one in the US, because that's something everybody would have thought was impossible.
Right.
And I said, that actually feels like a really hard thing. And I think I want to be a part of the team that does that. And so
I love how you think.
yeah. So I made the leap to move to the world of media and entertainment and movies and TV shows. And my team and I got to launch some of the coolest kind of TV shows and movies in the world. And that was really, really cool. And I'm so glad that God gave me the opportunity to move into tech and to move into entertainment. And now I know why. because while I was in that role, he started speaking to me about what I'm doing now. And it seemed like it would be a really hard pivot because I was like, I've been an executive for so long. I have what they call golden handcuffs. And it's at that point, it's actually really hard to obey God's voice because you're walking away and you're sacrificing from what the world will think is a lot.
Yeah.
But the burden just got heavier and heavier and heavier. And at some point, I was just like, it's time. It's time. And I have now been doing this for 2 years. It has been one of the most building this for 2 years. We just launched, but we've been building it for the last couple of years. It's one of the most exhilarating and hardest things I have ever done.
No kidding.
And so that's been really, really cool. But I wouldn't have been able to do it if God hadn't taken me on the journey that he had taken me on. I think having the opportunity to work in tech at Amazon and now building a tech platform, I see why he had me go through tech, making sure that it was a place that, yes, was bringing us all together, but then also would entertain us. Now I know why he had me go through entertainment and beauty, because that's, we look at kind of when he gives like a blueprint for whether it was the Ark of the Covenant or whether it was Noah's Ark. Like he's very specific about how he wants things done, and beauty is actually really important to him. So I was like, oh, I see. That's how everything that I have learned over the course of my career, that's how I use it all now on the ventures that you have me doing. And so it all makes sense now. But I can't lie, it was a really, really fun career and it had a lot of twists and turns, and I am incredibly grateful.
Wow, that's so incredible. I just love it. And you know what? It makes sense now how you ended up both in beauty and tech. And I'm realizing, I'm like, you know what? We have some similarities there because the Lord took me into fashion for a season and where I styled like 9,000 people through Stitch Fix. And then I consulted for a fashion tech company out of Israel during 2020. And so that was a whole interesting thing. So we have some similarities, but I love that. Okay, but what I love the most is I love that, and as just a mother and as just like a consumer, it encourages my heart. And I don't know why we think like this or I think like this, but it just encourages my heart to know that there are people in the higher echelons of these businesses and these companies that are massive that are believing, spirit-filled people that hear from the Lord, because I see the giant that Amazon is, I see the giant that Facebook is, and all these companies. And I think because they're so big, it can be easy to feel like they're just these big, massive giants that wouldn't know God if he slapped them in the face. You know what I mean? But then, I mean, just realistically, God is so strategic. Of course, he's going to put
Oh my
his
God.
Josephs in Egypt,
Of course. I was like, he's God. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. And so, okay, talk to me just because I'm curious now. What are some of those shows, the 8 shows that you worked on that like really became top shows? What are some of those that you were really
Oh
proud
my
of?
God. Basically, like everything that Amazon, launched during that time, we launched, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. No, sorry, so that those shows, Lord of the Rings, Coming to America 2, Reacher, The Boys. Okay, that one I'm not a big fan of the boys. Personally, I like it was too much. I was like, I told my team, I was like, you're gonna have to watch that show and figure that out because I'm like, I can't deal with that much blood and gore.
Yeah.
But my team worked on it. It was under my leadership. Yeah, I mean, you name it. We worked being the Ricardos. Yeah,
Wow.
all the shows that Thursday Night Football. Yeah, there were so many different shows that we launched during my tenure. It was really fun.
Okay, so what was your specific role? Did you do the marketing for it, or did you like craft and like work on the writing of the scripts for these shows? Like,
Mhm.
what did you exactly do?
Yeah, so my team led the marketing for all the shows. So whenever you would see a trailer or you would see any marketing for any of the shows on any platform, that would have been done by somebody on my team to get as many
Wow.
people to watch the show, even if they had already subscribed, or get people to subscribe to Amazon so they could watch the show. So any marketing that you would have seen during the time that I was working there would have been somebody that was on my team. Yeah.
You're my new personal superhero. This is great. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit now into the tech and what you're doing now. So the Lord kind of shifted you out of that. And so walk us through how he shifted you from that. Like, was there a moment when you were like, you did mention the burden got heavier and heavier. Was there a moment when you felt like the Lord, like, did he give you a vision? Did he speak to you? Was it just the subtle impression that kept growing? Did you see a problem that just made
Yeah.
you angry? How did that get on your radar where you
Yeah.
ended up kind of shifting? Take us through that part of your story.
Yeah, so I would say I wish it was like one thing, but there were a lot of different things that just led to like an aha when it was time and when it was very clear that this is what he wanted me to do. And I can talk to some of those. I think one was a dissatisfaction with the priority of my life. So if somebody had asked me what's the most important thing to you, in my head, I would have said my faith, my family, my friends, and my work in my head. But then when I actually saw how I was spending my time, you would have seen that it was like my work, my work, my work, my work, my work, and then like everything else. And at some point, I was like, okay, if I ever did anything else, I really want to bring those back in alignment. And I was like, well, what if my faith was my work? And if my faith was my work, then I never have to deal with this misalignment. And that way, I'm spending the most time with the thing that matters the most to me. So that's kind of one logical way. The second thing was I was reading my Bible. And so I had this in the back of my mind that I wanted to do this someday, but I didn't know how or when. I just knew that I was dissatisfied with that misalignment and God would lead me to align it in some way, but I didn't know how. And so one day I'm reading the Bible, and I have been a Christian all my life since I was a little girl. I don't have any before stories like, I was a Christian since I was a little girl. And so I've read the Bible a lot. But I was reading the Bible and I read John 17:20-23. And it was like I had never read it before, which I think would be impossible because I've been reading the Bible a long time. And it said, it was Jesus after he had left the Last Supper and he was praying to his Father. And I thought was really important, he said, and I think it was really important that he said, this prayer is not just for my disciples, but for everybody who will ever believe in me. So that included me and everybody else. And then he said, I wish they would be one as you and I are one. And if they are one, then the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. And I said, hold up, girl. never seen that before.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, so if the world doesn't know that he loves them, and if the world doesn't know that he was sent, it's because we're not one. Because he was very clear that if we are one, this would happen.
Mm.
And so if we don't have a world that knows this, then that means this is broken.
Mm.
And I that was the burden that just got heavier and heavier and heavier. And the more research I did into it, I said, oh, wow, there are 2.6 billion Christians in the world, and we're forecasted to grow. So regardless of what anybody says, we're growing.
Yeah.
So we're forecasted to grow to over 3 billion by 2050, and I believe it could be even bigger than that.
Amen.
But what had started as Jesus and his 12 friends had now splintered into 46,000 denominations and rites, which in and of itself wasn't bad. But then I said, but where do we all come together again? Mm. So we all kind of on Sundays go to our different places. But if God wants to do a move that involves all his children, where does that happen? Are we then depending on secular media to tell us when there's a move? And like, what is the media that tells all his kids that he's doing something? And what is the media that then tells people if they have a call or a passion, that there are these other people who have a similar call? Because we always think we're alone, but we're not really.
Right.
That tells these other people that actually there are all these other people that God has given either the resources or the insights or the money or the time to help you with that. And I was like, how does that all get facilitated? And that's the burden that just kept getting heavier and heavier. And I didn't know of a place where I could go and say, this is where all the Christians live.
Yeah.
And so since it didn't exist, I said, okay, then we're going to build it. And so that's something that became clear, just spending a lot. I would take these walks and they would just last for hours, and just me and God just praising and talking and like just wrestling with him about what he wanted me to do. And basically landed in this place that we would build a place where all 2.6, so that is the vision, is to build a place where all 2.6 billion Christians come together.
Wow.
And what happens from that point, I don't know. So that is like step one. I am just obeying the step of like, build a place, bring all my kids together.
Yeah.
What happens when all his kids come together? I don't know, but I know it's going to be powerful.
Wow.
I know it's going to be incredible. And I know that if a house divided against itself will fall, then a house that is united is going to be the most powerful thing the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
And if what Jesus said is true, which everything he says is true, that when we are one and when we're together, the world will know that they are loved, and they will know that he was sent. And so I'm just being obedient to that call and building it. And so we've built it. And so now talking to as many people as possible to say, it exists. I would love to have as many Christians be a part of it. And give me feedback, give us feedback. If there are things that should be a part of it that are not a part of it, we'll build it. But really, they say God doesn't show you the staircase, like he just shows you a step.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of shown this first step, and we've been obedient, just following up.
So what I hear you saying is you already successfully displaced Netflix, so you're going to successfully displace Facebook next, right?
But imagine the power of all God's kids come together. The world will have to take notice, right? Like the world, and I was like, I'm thinking about what Jesus said is like, the world will know you sent me and that you love them. And I was like, wow, like I didn't think of, I can't even take credit for coming up with this thought. Like this was something that he showed me over time. But I was like, wow, like how powerful would that be? To have all his kids together in one place. And there isn't anything that he's asked any of us to do that we wouldn't be able to turn to a fellow Christian and go, will you help me? If you say, I'm in Houston and God's called me to do X, then you can find all the people in Houston who feel a burden with you, and you guys could accomplish that. And so I think of all the ways that this could really impact the world and impact the church. And I think it could be really incredible. Right now, we're just obeying the first step.
Yeah, that's so good and so powerful. And I love it. Okay, so then talk to me a little bit about Because I think one thing that's kind of forefront, and that we're going to get really specific down here now, one of the things that's very forefront, at least for me and anyone raising children in this tech age, is managing the impact that tech has on them, both on their brain development, their
Yeah.
social development, their
Yeah.
emotional health, all of those things. And I know a lot of that is due to content. Like I have a family member who is young, and due to the crap that she sees on YouTube and social media and the things, she believes she's a boy, and just all this.
Mhm.
So the voices that go in are very, very, very powerful, especially at those ages. So obviously this is probably something that's hit your radar at some point in this project. So what are maybe some plans you guys have in place to help with teens on social media and stuff like that, if this is a social media platform?
Yeah. So we've set the goal for this platform to be for folks that are 16 and older. And if they are less than 16, their parents would have to be the ones that give them the permission to be a part of it. And so we built this for folks that are 16 and older because we know that it can be a lot of information for people who are younger than that. And the parents and the kids will have to figure out if it's something they want to expose their kids to when they're younger than that.
Yeah.
But most importantly, is that when you go into the app and you're about to post something, what you see is a scripture that says, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are of good report, because those are the things. Zaya means light, and we want the content on Zaya to be light.
Yeah.
And so it's content that's supposed to inspire one another. It's content that's supposed to build each other up. And we encourage people to post on the things that would do those things, right?
That's so good.
And we moderate for content that is not aligned with that, leveraging both technology and humans to do that. And so that for me is actually really important, because you'll hear people say, do we actually need this space if we can all just get together in a different space? But I know that whether as a child or as an adult, you have to go through a lot of crap to get to the content that edifies and builds you up. And most people will say that when they get off social media, they typically don't feel edified. They typically feel like something's been taken away from them, or they feel less than. And so as we were building this and saying, okay, God, like, what do we want people to feel like after they've left this space? And we want them to feel inspired, we want them to feel edified, and we want them to feel connected, because if there's any tool that the enemy uses, is he likes to make us feel like we're isolated, like we're the only ones who believe God where we are. Like, I may have thought I was the only one in entertainment, but there were probably a lot of Christians in entertainment, and I didn't really know who they were. And in the future of Zaya, my hope is like that group, you can create a tribe within Zaya, Christians in entertainment, and all of a sudden you're not alone anymore. And so like, how do we get to a place where we all feel connected? And if we're more connected, he can use us in really powerful ways to reach the world for him. So yeah, that's our hope. But so building this space, we'll all have to do it together, because the family of believers will have to moderate and say, no, we don't, this is not appropriate. And they report it. And then once they report it, we can take a look at it. So we'll kind of moderate it together. We'll leverage technology. But I think the family of believers leveraging the word of God will also moderate the community to make sure that it continues to be a place that is edifying and that, builds up his children.
That's good. And honestly, from personal experience, when I worked for Stitch Fix, they had their own, almost like a platform, like Facebook. It was called Yammer. But they had a platform. And so all of us stylists would share ideas and talk. It was like a social media just for our company, and because we had a big company. And so, and the culture at Stitch Fix, one of their primary core values is kindness. And so what I loved about it is that getting into fashion, I thought, oh man, it's gonna be a bunch of divas and like catty attitudes and all this stuff. But they created a culture that showed up even on their tech. And what I saw in that is that you can create culture anywhere as long as it's intentional, right? And then I mean, Facebook has created a culture, but they've created it with their algorithm in that they'll put stuff in front of you that makes you angry or
Yeah.
makes you
Yeah.
jealous or what causes an emotional reaction specifically to keep you on the platform. Well, I mean, they're using their algorithm to create a culture. And so I think the fact that you're describing the kind of culture that you want on this social media platform, it's doable. And to me, that's exciting. And I just love that you have this vision for believers to come together. And I love that we're in a time where tech does make this possible. In fact, just back in October, I feel like I had a glimpse. I had a glimpse into the way that a lot of believers can come together. In that, I went to the the Million Women March in DC that
Okay.
Luengo put together.
Yeah.
And I had the woman who actually put it together. I had her on my show, Laura, and she was saying that we had 375,000 women there on the mall in DC, but they had 10 million people. They had 10 million hits by noon that day on their website.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
people around the world were tuning in and watching and praying for the nation, fasting, praying,
Wow.
interceding. And it was over 10 million people at one time at one event praying for the
Wow.
course of America.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I know that because of tech, we're in a time where this is more
Yeah.
possible, what you're
Yeah. Yeah.
describing, than ever
Yeah.
before. And
Yeah.
so that's exciting, and I hope that's encouraging for you.
Thank you.
And so what would be your dream? Like if people are to get on this, how can they, like you've got people who are business owners, how can they use this platform to even help with their businesses? Is that what it's part of? Or like go into maybe some of the other facets of it?
Yeah, so when you come into the platform, you're going to see a number of different things. One, you're going to see a feed like you see on other social media platforms, except here the feed edifies you and it inspires you. So I would say, one, when you come in, be a part of the community. The community of Christians want to hear what God has said to you, because what he said to you is going to encourage them.
Yeah.
And so there are two different ways that you can share. We have two parallel feeds, which is very innovative. One, it's new innovation within social media. We have two parallel feeds. One is visual and one is in words, because that's typically how God speaks. Like he'll show you like a picture, or he'll give you a vision, or you'd be like, I heard a word. And so one is called Zaya, which means light, which is the visual feed. And one is called word, which is whatever God just speaks to you. It could be a scripture. You don't need a picture. You don't need the perfect video. Literally just type whatever he said, and then you encourage the community of believers. So that's one aspect of the app. The second aspect of the app that I think has so much potential is what we call tribes. And we called it tribes after the 12 tribes of Israel. And that is an opportunity for you to find your people. And so that is like, God has given me this area of passion. God has given me this area of a burden or a calling, and I want to find other people around the world that share that burden. And so you can either join a tribe that already exists, or if you don't see a tribe that fits your passion or calling, you can create one. And then other people, when they come in and search for something similar, they can find your tribe and they can join. So that's a place that I think will be great, for example, for business owners, because the business is really physical manifestation of kind of a vision that God has given you. But you can find all the people that share that vision, and you can find all the people that have that need, or you can find all the people who want to see that difference in the world and start to bring those people together. And we don't have the algorithm like other social media where you have a profile, but then we only let 2% of the people see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't have that, right? Because this is not a company that's generating revenue. This is really an answer to what God has asked us to do. So if you have a community of X people, you can talk to that community of X people, and that is your community to manage and to reach out to. So yeah, that's the tribe section of the app. We have the opportunity for you to read the word in the app. So we have the Bible there. And we have the opportunity for you to discover other people on the app and to find people who may share your calling or your passion. So when you come into the app, at least today, that's what it looks like. But as people are coming into the app, they're also sharing feedback with us, and we're continuing to evolve it
Yeah.
and to build it. So for example, one of the things they've said to us is we want to be able to message and chat with other people that are on the app. So we're actually building that feature and we're launching it later this month for people to be able to reach out to any Christian they see on the app and go, I love that, or encourage them directly, not necessarily like in the feed or in tribes. So yeah, we're just listening to God's community of believers and listening to him directly and trying to build whatever it is it's going to take to bring this community of believers around the world together.
That's so incredible. So what are some of the collaborations like? Are there companies that you've already partnered with that are championing your app so far that like are we going to see, like, is Lifeway going to talk about it, or I don't even know if Lifeway is a thing anymore. But are there any companies that have partnered with you that are like running with this as well?
So yeah, we're just started on our journey. So I would say anybody who is interested to that wants to partner with us, we are very open, and we're talking to whoever would love to partner with us to spread the word about this app, or any church. We think it's perfect actually for a lot of churches. They have a Sunday service, but they don't really have a place where the entire community at the church kind of comes together. Yeah. You could imagine, you could create a tribe for your cell group, your prayer group, your women's group, your entire church. You could have a tribe for that. And that group can always kind of communicate together, and you know that you're doing it in a safe space. Yeah. And you know that you're doing it in a place too where other people who are not currently part of your church could discover your church too. Yeah. So yeah, I think just partnering with churches and different organizations that want to help us spread the word, and help people discover all the different ways that they can reach out to the body, or expand the body of Christ through the app.
That's incredible. And I feel like this would be a refreshing solution, especially for men, because I know a lot of men don't get on social media because they're like, it assaults my eyes constantly, and like, I know I'm on social media probably every day. I get friend requests from these men who are in their 50s and are holding puppies, and I'm a pilot and you probably want to date me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, go away. And so like, it would be really nice to be in a social space where that can be a lot avoided. I don't know how much you can control that, but I feel like it would be a lot less of an issue on your platform. Is that fair?
Yeah. That is our prayer, but we know that there will always be people who will try to see as far as they can take things, and so that's why we say it's the community will moderate it together. So we leverage AI to help us moderate. So if somebody tries to upload something that's inappropriate, our AI will flag it, and basically say, we don't think this is right, but let a human, it doesn't automatically remove it, but it does flag it and take it out of the community so that a human can review it and go, yeah, no, this is not appropriate. Or actually, this is fine. The AI was being sensitive and it's perfectly okay, and release it. And that way it continues to be a safe space. But if for some reason the AI misses it and another Christian sees something on the feed, they can report it and go, we don't believe this is appropriate. And it goes to the exact same place for the moderation team to review that and go, oh yeah, you're right, that doesn't belong here. And so over time, currently we haven't had any issues with that. It is a safe space, and it has been. And our hope is that it continues to be with a combination of technology and the global community of believers who want to make sure that this remains a safe space for us.
That's so good. I love that. How many users are currently on the platform?
So we have had about 60,000 people download it so far. But our goal is 2.6 billion. And it's one of those, I know, it's like God kind of gives you this vision. You're like, okay, how are we going to go from here to there? And it's just like, okay, he's like, provision means I give you the vision, but I'm going to provide for it and I'm going to make it happen. This is my dream. This is my vision, and I'm going to make it happen. And so our goal is to be obedient to him, to let the body of Christ know about what the goal is and what the mission is and what the vision is. And we believe that it's the body of Christ that's going to make it what it's supposed to be. And it's not one person. I feel like my role was to build it, but then I feel like now it's kind of like out of my hands, and it's now in the hands of Christians all over the world to make it into whatever it is that it's going to be, because they're the ones who are going to spread the word. They're the ones who are going to create tribes. they're the ones who are going to say, we need this one feature. We would use it more if you had this feature, and then the team of engineers will build it. And so the good thing about it being a God thing is that you don't have to be a control freak about it. You can say, okay, God, like, what do you want this to be? And his kids will build it into what it's going to be.
That's so good. And you know, the passage that has been resonating in my heart literally for probably about a month now is the one that says that you may sow the seed, another man waters the seed, but it's the Lord who brings the growth. And I have just seen that over and over and over in my own experience as well. But it's literally, the Lord is like, it's my responsibility to bring the growth. And we do our part, but it's his breath and his favor on the situation that causes something to grow and expand. And so I could see churches, like you're saying, I could see churches, even denominations, like if you go to the denominational headquarters and talk to them and them putting it out to all their churches and pastors and stuff, I could see it really scaling that way as well. So for those who are listening, how can they go get their hands on it? You mentioned that it's an app. Is it available on both Apple and everywhere? Is it only in English? Is it around the world languages?
That's such a great question. So it's on the App Store and on the Play Store. So if you have Android or iPhone, we have the app available for you. So just go to the App Store, type in Zaia, Z-A-I-A, or if you're in Canada or England, Z-A-I-A. You type that and you'll see the app, and you just, you download it. It asks you a few questions to make sure that you're a Christian, because it's an app for believers. And then, once we know that you're a Christian, you come into the app. There's no cost to join the app, and you just join the company of believers. And when you go into the app, you'll see that it's the global church. And that it was actually really interesting for me, because when we first launched it, because I live in America, I've lived in America now for most of my life, and you start seeing people joining from like different countries, and you start hearing the different languages and accents and things like that. You're like, oh my God, this is really interesting. I see people from Africa and Asia and South America, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm getting a little glimpse into what heaven's gonna be like, right? Because I'm like, this is so different than my everyday Christian community that I get to be a part of. Like, I get to see what God is doing in Kenya. I get to see what God is doing in Guatemala. Like, that's actually really interesting. And I don't know that I've been exposed to that on a day-to-day basis before. And I'm like, this feels like a preview of what, heaven could be like. And we're kind of getting to practice that now. So you just come in, there's no cost. And you can create new tribes, you can join a tribe, and then most importantly, just helping us to spread the word, because all 2.6 billion Christians will get there if the Christians who started it help get it to other Christians. And I believe as we do that, it will eventually reach everyone that it's supposed to reach. I believe that very firmly.
Okay, one last little question. I just thought about, what about the believers? My husband and I do a lot of missions, and he really prioritizes people in the 1040 window, which is the unreached groups. What about believers in parts of the world where, like China, where they're kind of an underground church? And like, have you gotten to that point yet where you're seeing if they can get on it, if it creates issues for them, or if it creates safety for them? Like, have you explored any of that yet?
That's a really, really good question. I think the farthest we've gone on that is when you create a tribe, you have the opportunity to create a public tribe or a private tribe. And so I think in communities or for topics where you go, I want to find my community, but I want my tribe to be private. I don't necessarily want it to be public, which could be a cell group, or it could be you could be in a persecuted environment, or it's a subgroup and we talk about things that are more private and we don't want it to be a public tribe. We at least created a space for private tribes so that they can be a part of the community, but they can either do it as a private individual or create a group that's private, and only people they invite into the group get to know that the group even exists. Because we know that there will be spaces, right, where people are either persecuted or for whatever reason don't feel comfortable living their faith out loud yet. We don't know what God's going to do, right? Because also when you bring about unity, who knows how he's going to use that unity to even address some of that, right, in the long term. But in the meantime, we have provided spaces for people to meet either publicly or privately within the app.
So this could really be a tool that missionaries could use as well, especially because my husband, sometimes we will have to use a different platform, one that we know is safe, like Telegram, or I think they used to use WhatsApp, but I don't know how safe that is anymore. But he used to do that to keep things private for the sake of the missionaries over there, because
Yeah.
it can put them at risk. But how incredible if this would be a tool that would be a part of helping the underground church communicate
Yeah.
and grow, and that would be incredible.
And I would be happy, we would be happy to meet with your husband directly to help us design it specifically for that. To say,
Yeah.
this is what we've done so far, but if he says, but we need A, B, and C, and it doesn't have that, we can get our team to build A, B, and C.
That'd be
Because this is
amazing.
a tool for the church. So
Yeah.
whatever the church needs it to be, so that you have the tool to move his kingdom forward and to expand his kingdom,
Yeah.
we are there to do exactly that. So
Yeah.
we would love to be able to meet with him to say,
Yeah.
oh, this is how we're not being served today, and this is what will increase the safety. That would be amazing. Like, we would love to get that input so that
Yeah.
we can design it even more to serve the needs of the underground church, for sure.
Okay, that's incredible. Then we may need to schedule another Zoom call.
I know. I'm all down about that, and that's why I said it's the body that's going to make it what it needs to be. Because I
Yeah.
feel like we've built what we call the MLP, like the minimum, because I don't call it minimum viable product, because I'm like, God doesn't do ugly. So our first version is actually, it's what I call an MLP, is a minimum lovable product. But as the body comes together, they will tell us what they need. And then we just need to be obedient to that and to help. And so what you just said is the perfect example of that, to say, this is what it exists today, but actually there's this other need that I may not even have thought of, because my whole life I've been an executive, I haven't been a missionary.
Yeah.
But then the missionaries say, if you add these features, that would be game changing for us.
Yeah.
Now we can have a team of engineers that can partner with you to build that. And we would love to be able to build that.
That's incredible. I just love this. Okay, so they can get it at Zaya, ZAIA, and then they can follow you. How can they follow you? So they, because I'm sure they all just fell in love with you listening to this interview.
So you can go into Zaya. You can find me. My name is Ukonwa, Ukonwa, Ukonwa. You can follow me in Zaya, or you can follow me on other social media apps as well, because I recognize that all the apps are all kind of part of our lives. We just want a place that, I want to escape into a place where I know I will be edified and I will be inspired, and I can connect with people who believe what I believe. Yeah. So you can find me on other social media apps, or you can go into Zaya and find me there. And I look forward to meeting everyone. I look forward to all the feedback from everyone that's going to help us build it into what it should be. Yeah. But we're just in the beginning of that journey.
I love it. Well, I'm excited. It was an honor to have you on the show and hear your story and do my little part to help get it out into more hands and into more homes. And so thank you so much for your obedience and for doing the part that you're playing. In my heart, in my spirit, I feel like what you're doing is a really big deal and plays such an important role in what God is doing in the earth at this time with the church. And it just makes me very excited for you. So I'm excited for what the Lord's doing. So thank you for coming on. It's good to have you. And you guys, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you go check out the app, and make sure you go check her out on social media. I'm going to go ahead and put all those links in the show notes. So if you guys forgot how to spell anything, we can make it easier for you. And so make sure you guys are following Java with Jen on Instagram as well. That's where I put a lot of my updates. And make sure you guys grab the journal that I just released this week, Hearing God's Voice for Everyday Life. You can grab that. It'll be available on Amazon by the time you're hearing this episode. Go check that out, grab that out, or grab that journal and make it 2025. Make it a year that you really learn how to lean into hearing God's voice, just like Ukonwa has experienced and just like I've experienced. A part of your life as a believer, you should be able to hear the Lord's voice and hear his guidance. He loves to talk to his children, and that's a tool to help you do that. So I love you guys. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. Listen, let's stay connected. Come follow me on Instagram at Java with Jen, where you can follow the latest and say hey. It's a really great way to stay in touch. Many of you have also asked how you can support the show. You can make donations through the Anchor app or on Patreon, or of course by sharing, rating, and reviewing on social media and iTunes as well. Your heartfelt feedback always reminds me why I do this. Also, don't miss our merch store where you can get super cool Java with Jen swag and coffee. Find it at javawithjenmerch.com. Until next time, remember, hearing God's voice is simple, and He wants to be a part of your everyday life. See you next week.